good, brother?
What's up, man? How are you?
Man, I'm good. It's good to see you, man. How
I'm
you
doing
doing?
well. Sorry for the little delay, uh, but it's nice to breathe and know that the weekend is here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Especially, I mean, with all the travel that you've been doing
Yeah,
too. So,
yeah, man. It doesn't stop. It feels like things just get busier and busier, right? So it's never get a breather.
so that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. They see like you on socials and everything, and it's like, oh, he's one of the best bodybuilders in the world. Like he probably just wakes up, eats his meals, goes to the gym, trains, comes back.
You're working your way to that point. What I realized was, like even hypothetically speaking, before Tampa, before where I currently am. I was busy and working my way up, but I feel as though the past 2 or so months, not just from Tampa and the win and going to Olympia and what that's provided me, just other personal things have been so crazy and busy that it's been some of the most draining, busy times I've ever had. And it doesn't stop. And it's like you said, people look at some of these top guys who have the luxury of, and I don't want to say luxury because they've worked for it, right? Like they've kind of gotten to where they are now. What I'm trying to say is I'm in that middle point where I feel like you're kind of trying to get there, and then you're like closer, and then you finally get there. And I feel like that middle point actually is some of the toughest because getting there has given you more that you have to now juggle on top of what you're currently doing, right? And then you kind of get to uh, you know your goal of maybe like financial stability, freedom, time, all this, multiple jobs, you know what I mean, or just being able to kind of pull back a little bit from someone, right? And right now I'm in that space where it's just so busy. I feel like it's just nonstop.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. You have a full-time
Yep.
job. You teach posing. You coach.
Can you hear my
Um,
my thing
what else?
going off? I don't know how to turn that off.
Yeah, I can hear your phone
It's
going
not my
off. Yeah.
phone. It's my laptop. Because my phone
Oh,
right here
okay.
like off. Um, actually, Dan just texted me and my fiance. I'm going to get back to the room. Dan just sent my coach, Dan Hahn, for those that don't know. He said 63 guys are in Classic Olympia. They just announced. They just put it out. I don't know if you. I got an email saying like the IFBB Olympia list is out. Like as I was about to use the restroom and come to this call, I didn't look at anything. Um, but 63 folks.
Yeah, all the qualified athletes at least so they dropped that I think on
Okay.
Monday, just because the final qualifier was on Sunday, which was the UK Europa Pro, but um, that's 63 qualified, but there are guys who end up dropping out and whatnot. Like, I mean, just off the top of my head, I know for a fact like Terrence isn't going to be there, and just generally speaking, things come up like people have visa issues. If I had to guess, we'll probably see about 10 to 15 guys end up dropping out. That's generally what ends up happening. So it'll probably be closer to 50, but nevertheless, man, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah, I wonder if in the future it'll ever get tougher to get to Olympia for these divisions, or they're kind of going to keep it as is with the number of shows and qualifications allowed per division and athletes there. I know because of the athlete count and the number of people I believe legally allowed backstage, because I had inquired about my coach coming backstage, and they said no coaches. There's only athletes and very select few um, work
Like
workers,
photographers.
just staff like expediters, like not even people that are working the weekend that might be doing other things are allowed backstage. It's very selective.
Yeah, I think that's probably also due to just some things that have happened in recent
Yeah,
months. It shows
that
too.
could be it too. That
Yeah, just to keep the athletes all, in their zone and just keep everybody safe as well to prevent, there was an incident at a show, I think 5, 6 months ago that, I think a lot of people
yeah,
were aware of. Um, but yeah, if I had to guess, it's probably that, and it allows them to do their job as best as they can. But regardless, man, I think you bring up an interesting topic, and it's that it seems like the Olympia every single year is just getting bigger and bigger and whatnot. And I've talked with people about this before, and there are a variety of different, I guess solutions, and that's also assuming that we want to make the pool of athletes smaller on that final stage. Um, just because it doesn't seem like pro shows are going anywhere, right? It's like the amount of pro shows. There's one to two at least every single weekend leading up to the Olympia.
Gonna preview shows too, so it's like maybe there's not even a new show, but divisions are added, which means more athletes from a different division for the same show, right? So
Yeah, but like, what are your thoughts, man? What would you find kind of like an interesting path to the Olympia as a guy who, like, I mean, you've solidified yourself as a contender here too, and going forward, I think your name's going to be in the discussion for qualifying and doing well at future Olympias. As an athlete yourself, what would kind of interest you in terms of like an Olympia setup? And this is assuming that there's some sort of solution in the future to maybe doing the Olympia a different way or doing it smaller. Would you be interested in something like almost having like a semifinal show and then a final show, which is like the top X amount of guys, or maybe just having like a tier system of like show, so like you win a certain show and that puts you at a certain like tier to eventually go on and do another show to get to the Olympia.
I
um what are your
yeah,
thoughts, man?
that's a great question. To be honest with you, I don't think I've really thought too much into it, and I'm going to be quite frank with everyone here. I don't really understand how promoters get paid, how the relationship is with promoters and the IFBB, MPC, like what's allowed to be, what shows are allowed, sanctions. I don't understand any of that. So like, if you're asking me from an athlete's perspective, right? Like, if there was a way to kind of do a tier system where you don't get an automatic qualification for certain shows, and I feel like that's how it used to be, right? Like there were some shows you didn't get qualification.
They used to do
Yeah, and I
points,
think
yeah.
that I hate to say it like that, but like that would make the most sense because this is like you can have all these shows. I feel like that would be a happy medium if I'm thinking logically about it. And it's funny because like I try my absolute best to keep my bias out of like things that make the most sense for every party involved, right? And I feel as though from a promotion perspective, it's probably really good for promotion, the IFBB, the NPC to have more shows for publicity, right? For traction, for more ticket sales, for more revenue, for more sponsor opportunities per show. There's some shows that are just for like I like great example like Fuad's show is there's only two pro male divisions now I believe, and then like there's um, are there pro shows out there where it's just female divisions,
Yeah,
right?
I can think of one off the top of my head, like the Rising Phoenix is always, I mean, that's the biggest female bodybuilding
Yeah,
show.
so some type of point system where these athletes can still do shows for their chance to qualify, right? And you never know. Like someone could be like, I don't want to get to Olympia off points. What happens if that person's body just gets better as they go through prepping and they beat people who have won a show to qualify, right? So you have this person who did three shows, placed in the top 2 to 3, put in their time, got to the playoffs, and they just battled harder at that any given Sunday, right? That any given Sunday, and they came out on top of someone who might have beat them in one of those shows. They got points for. I feel like that would make the most sense to kind of limit the athlete count, but still give promoters, fans, IFBB, MPC. But again, I don't know. So like, I don't. I hope that like anyone who's listening to this, like I that would just to me make the most sense. But feel free to tell me I'm wrong for the way that I think. I just feel as though if every show qualifies, like you have a show like, and I won't even say Tampa, but like let's use another big show like Texas,
Texas.
Texas. There you go, Pittsburgh, right? And then like there's some smaller shows that have happened where like the caliber of athletes is just not there. People aren't doing it, right? And is it for quite some time? I'll be honest with you. In my head, I'm like, like, is that fair that someone can win one of these small shows that might have 10 people and like none of them have been to the Olympia, and it's just like a random show that popped up and just got someone's hopping into it and they're qualifying off that, like they're getting to the Super Bowl of our sport. And then you have someone who, like, let's say when the point system was around, they did 4 or 5 shows, placed third, fourth, second, like but they still didn't get to the Olympia. But they might have made more money from competing. They might have had better, like, what I mean, more accolade from the number of shows and the type of shows. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of validity to your point as well because there are guys who have in the past when the point system was still around done multiple shows and ended up, kind of in the hunt as well at the Olympia. Like, I remember Ramon Dino's very first season in Classic Physique, where he appeared at the Olympia, the 2021 Olympia, where he placed fifth. He actually didn't win a pro show to
Really?
get there. Yeah, so I do believe, so I don't think he qualified off of points, but rather he so it was this weird technicality. The Europa Pro that year, the top two went to the Olympia, and he finished second in that show and then placed top five at the Mr. Olympia. Whereas, I think the rest of the top four, it was like Chris, who automatically qualified, Terrence, who won the Arnold that year, Urs won
Hey,
Tampa.
Tampa, we got Tampa winner in the top four.
Yeah. And then Rion, who was, a classic
Who's
Olympian or a
I just
classic
want to give
Olympian.
he's probably not going to see this, but I'm so impressed by him, and like I'm impressed by all those guys. Like, I'm looking forward to being on stage with him. But Rion looks, he just he just is a nut. He'll go down as one of the greatest in our divisions, no doubt.
Dude, yeah, you make a great point because like I think he doesn't get enough love. Like the thing about Breon is he's just extremely consistent, extremely dependable, and he does the things that are like unsexy to be super
Yeah,
great. Like he just and we were talking about this on the preview, me and Jarek, that we just filmed. In terms of condition, like Breon is insane with
yeah,
the condition, bro. Like we were talking about DeBoul, and I was like, I mean, Breon's right there with
yeah.
DeBoul, in my opinion. And the only thing about Breon that like you can really knock is his quad size, and that's just a product of age. That's like something that he
And,
can't even
and
really
even
control
then,
either, man.
he's a great example in my hum, and they don't look alike. Let me put that out there, but it's a similar concept. Him and Beirut for open, they make it work. Like that.
Exactly.
Yes, it's not the most promising feature on them, but they make it work with how they present it. And like Beirut's, like the one critique he gets is like get bigger quads, right? But like look at him everywhere, and it still flows. He looks absolutely insane and disgusting. And I feel as though Breon makes it work for him. Wesley makes it work for him. You can, like, I don't think we could say Wesley's wheels and from the rear were the craziest at the Arnold and the shows he's done, but he's made it work. And I would say that that's not maybe the best example because I feel like Breon and Beirut make that feature of theirs work more than Wesley's. However, Wesley's very polished and dominant everywhere else, where he, the minuscule flaws he hides. These
Yeah. Well, but like in terms of other guys, so you mentioned Breon, who are you looking forward to standing next to at the Olympia most, or who do you hope you kind of get compared to in some of these comparisons, maybe the call outs and whatnot?
um, I I haven't really. This sounds silly, but like I haven't even really been doing too much of a countdown, other than I understand like when I check in Tuesday, um, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5. When I check in Friday, I'm 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like I haven't really been doing an in depth countdown to even. I've been so busy, and I haven't really did like really dove into how other athletes are looking and whatnot. But just from a a pure excitement standpoint, Chris. Like I understand I'm not at that level, and there's a lot of comments that go out. So people that do see this who like uh, maybe think like I think that or I started that, like that is not me. Like I have never compared myself to Bumstead. I think the one thing that I can say like is true is unbiasedly looking at it, we have some similar structural things, right? But I mean, he's a champ for a reason. Like it's kind of inappropriate to compare with number one. And yes, that's my goal. But like I'm also, again, like if I'm just speaking facts, black and white, like I would like to step on stage, just see. You always want to see where you stand against the best, because then you know what you have to do. Like for me, I know what I'm going to have to do to get there. You know what I mean? So it's not going to happen this year. Do I think that I can? Really, I look to answer your question. I look forward to being compared to anyone in the top 10. I'd like to really, really see if I can break into a top 10. I think that anyone who places at this year's Olympia, like 15th and 1 through 15th, if you place, like you are an incredible athlete. I mean, you're an incredible athlete for getting there. Even at some of these smaller shows that we've mentioned, 63 athletes qualified. Not all of them were Arnold, not all of them were Texas, right? But you get there, it's incredible. And to be able to break into a top 15 would be unreal. And then a top 10 would be like, wow, especially in today's classic class. It's more stacked than it was even 3-4 years ago.
It's the deepest division in
Yeah,
bodybuilding, man, without question. And to even just place at the Classic Olympia is an achievement now, because I mean, even in these conversations that we have about guys who are winning these pro shows, it's like if you even think about it, bro, like the fact that Zonka went out and just won 2 pro shows in the past year, he was 13th at the
yeah,
Olympia, bro. And Zonka is crazy, crazy good. And like, I mean, people have seen the comparisons of him standing next to Chris, and like it's not that crazy of a like a difference between the two. Like, granted, Chris Bumstead is Chris Bumstead, 5-time Olympia champ for a reason. But but Zonka's
yeah.
crazy,
They
bro.
all are, man. They all are nutty. And like again, what I said a little bit earlier, any given Sunday. Any given Sunday. Like anything can happen. Wesley beat Ramon at Arnold. I don't think we were predicting that going into the Arnold. I wasn't. I don't,
Nobody
I don't
was.
think anyone was. So for him to make that leap, it's impressive. It's definitely impressive.
Yeah. So 22 days, just over 3 weeks out, and you recently just made a trip to Pittsburgh, right? So you visited the NPC gym, visited with Tyler and the Manions. So how was that trip, and what was kind of the experience like, the feedback
Yeah,
you got?
yeah. Well, it was a long trip, long drive because I drove from Jersey. So I drove by myself. My fiance couldn't come. My coach, you know, lives North Carolina and he couldn't make it. So solo trip. The flights were so much money and just didn't work out. So I'm like, I'm driving. So I drove the 5.5 hours. One Tuesday night, got there, and then Wednesday we had the shoot. And it was unreal. It was honestly like an athlete's kind of like dream to be invited to something like that, because they don't invite everyone to the road to Olympia. They can't. Um, there's not enough time, and some of the days Tyler isn't there because he's traveling for shows, and he's getting there early and whatnot. So I was fortunate enough to have Tyler look at me and give me some critiques and whatnot, and just to be able to train there, do an interview, meet. I met the bikini competitor who placed, I think she said second at the Arnold UK. She shot the same day, but after me, her and her husband were there. So it was cool, like converse with them, converse with people in the office. It was a great experience. It was really really cool. Train there, like in a gym by a private facility by yourself, because it's not public. So like it's for the staff and for whoever they bring out to shoot, and all the equipment is so clean. It's older. Like they have the like some OG stuff in there, and then also some new stuff. But the older stuff is like super super clean, and it was a great time. Blessing, man,
It's
blessing.
awesome, bro. Yeah, man, it's a really a special opportunity, and also to just get there and get some additional feedback because you can make some serious adjustments, and it's not even like because obviously you can't put on like tissue to certain body parts in a short amount of time, especially when you're this deep into prep and whatnot. But like to stand in front of Tyler and get some of his feedback, like I'm sure that's incredibly valuable heading into your very first
Yeah,
Olympia.
of course. And there were some things he actually thought that I improved from from Tampa. Not necessarily got bigger, but like the fullness looked good. Like you said, like you can't like for 10 weeks, it's 10 weeks in between Tampa and Olympia. You have enough time to kind of like do a little bit of a rebound out of it, but you got to be really careful, especially because your body's in a vulnerable state at that time. And then you kind of dive back in. And I will tell you, this is definitely the longest and toughest prep I've been in. I mean, I've been prepping since early March, so my body definitely feels it, holding the condition and kind of going through your day to day and feeling like you're dragging. You know what I mean? Like it's tough. It's definitely tough.
Yeah, man, to get to that condition and like hold it, it's not
Yeah, 'cause I
it is
was
not easy.
for
Brutal.
Tampa. For Tampa, I was peeled, and you know, I'd say we rebounded out of it, but I stayed in like that 1 month out condition, and then I was, I checked with Dan today. It's like you're ahead, man. You're even more ahead. So we're probably at like, if I go back and compare, I'm probably at like 1.5 week out condition from Tampa, and I'm about 3 weeks out now. So my weight's, I think it's a smidge lower than what it was at this point out from Tampa too, which makes sense. A little bit tighter and stuff like that. Performance is still pretty good because I feel as though the rebound was enough out of Tampa to give me energy, but it got me used to being able to train this lean, right, and this depleted. Where go like prepping for Tampa was tough because you were literally like losing the body fat, so like you were feeling those effects when it came to performance and training. Whereas like I didn't have the body fat after Tampa, so it's like I got some energy back to feel better for training. And it's just like I've been able to kind of maintain what I've been doing a bit better now, if that makes sense, without getting like weaker. Not really getting stronger, but not getting weaker. Just kind of like maintaining strength at this point where I would have been starting to lose it going into Tampa. So that's been kind of cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're kind of just uncovering new things. And I mean, this deep into a bodybuilding career, that's pretty remarkable. Um, and kind of on that same topic, I'm interested to hear more about. You mentioned
Yeah,
improvements. You made tremendous improvements over even just the past year from Charlotte Pro
yes,
2023, which was in what, April of
yeah,
that year,
yeah,
to Tampa in August of 2024. Just go through like what went into those improvements that you made and what you did to get there. Just the process behind
yeah.
that.
I it's definitely well, thank you, for that because definitely I have a tough time giving myself credit, having the confidence and whatnot, and unbiasedly can pat myself and my team's back, pat my team on the back because we did work, we went to work, So after Charlotte, I don't really remember much of last year after Charlotte, like kind of how that worked. I think I like eased back into training and whatnot, kind of was doing my own thing, like juggling around with different training thoughts, concepts, trying to really the main thing was back. But like that's the one thing I remember Tyler saying when we were backstage after Charlotte was you're back, you're back, you're back, you're back. And that show between me and Danny was close. That was a very close show. He came out on top. He had me beat from the back, which pretty much was it. But that's kind of what was hinted at was the reason I lost. And I feel as though if my back was matching the rest of my body at the time, maybe the outcome would have been different because it would have been a bit more balanced and could have made a case for me winning more of the poses and having my weaker body part pose not be as weak. So it'd be like, that's the reason you lost, right? Like feedback for me, another thing for feedback is like, your arms come up, but my arms weren't a reason that I lost, right? It was my back because it was the whole back double bicep and full pose. And I was posing it a little bit incorrectly as well. So around, I ended up me and my fiance took our first like true vacation. I think. Oh yeah, we flew out to Aruba the day before Halloween. We were there for a whole week, so I needed to freaking chill. I've been on a true vacation since my high school graduation, like 10 years ago. When I got back, I hired Nick Loft to do my training, and he definitely, you know, opened my eyes. I still work with him. He's opened my eyes to different things and concepts that could work for me, that might not work for me. Changed things along the way. Understood my body more and more. So I'm very grateful for that. So he programmed my training to really really bring up my back, um, my arms as well. Definitely the majority of things. I like some things were brutal. Uh, long workouts with a bit more volume than I'm used to before, a bit more high reps, but that's something I've learned that's worked for me for certain body parts. And one thing I've learned too is some body parts can just handle more than others. Um, my legs, like I I can't handle a lot because of how intense I train. I right now I do 4 sets of quads a week, 6 sets of hamstrings a week, and 2 sets of adductors for my legs. That's it. I have one leg day and that's it. That's it. It's like 3 hamstring movements, 3 quad movements, but 2 of the quad movements is 1 set, literally all out, and then adductors. So that's it. And then my back can handle a shit ton. My back can handle a lot of volume. My back can handle, 10 to 12 sets twice a week, right? Total. It's just, it's a good bit. Arms are kind of up there. And then, like, you get to the rep counts, the rep ranges where, like, the chest, back, and legs are all, like, a good range for me. It's like in that 8 to 12, 8 to 15 range. And, like, arms and shoulders, it's like the 10 to 15, a little bit higher, right? You learn what body parts do well with certain rep ranges and schemes and sets and whatnot. So that's been really, really helpful. And just, continuing to nail things with Dan Jarek, who we just had on, he actually helped me with some posing for my back in April of this year, which I think made a big difference. I've had to tailor it a bit based off of feedback and how it's looked on stage, where, I might have been leaning back a bit too much. Even with an improved back, my back kind of, you know, yeah, might have been closer to the judges, but I was kind of like, maybe pinching when if I stayed more, tall, I could kind of get wider, and that's more of my strength. And I fixed that for finals in Tampa. I definitely looked wider and better. So I just I sent you a little sneak peek of what my back looked like. It's definitely better for sure, and even better than Tampa. And that's something that Tyler did say was, my back does look better since Tampa. My biceps a little bit better since Tampa. So yeah, a lot went into it. Obviously, a lot with Dan. Like just being on top of everything with my coach of 7.5 years. Knowing my body and just working with me, working with Nick. To do what we have to do to improve. And like Tampa was still like so surreal. So, like just really surreal for me. Really great. I don't even know if it's really hit.
Yeah, man, it's one of the premier shows, one of if not the best show outside of the Arnold and the Olympia. So it's a lot to be proud of, man. You came into a show where a lot of people didn't expect you to win it, and you took out some heavy, heavy hitters, guys who have placed very well at the Olympia
Yeah.
before, and really just, I mean, you shocked a lot of
I didn't
people.
expect to win, to be honest. And I want to put that out there because you don't have to believe in yourself fully to be able to achieve your goals. You can you can still. It's kind of like if you want to be a billionaire. It's like that's really far fetched, but I'll do everything I can to get there. And when you get there, someone could be like, "Do you believe you ever would?" No, but I wanted it that bad that I was willing to find out. You know, I was willing to put in the work to see if it would work out. And that's just what I've been doing this whole career and journey of mine. It's tough to believe in myself, and I look at all these tremendous athletes who I admire and I respect so much, and being on stage with them is such an honor. And like, I view them so highly. Like, if you have some like, if you ever had like, confidence issues, like self doubt and stuff like that, like it's really tough to give yourself credit, and you tend to give it to a lot of other people, and they deserve it, right? But it's just you have a tough time giving it to yourself. And it wasn't until Tampa where I finally got a little bit of like self belief, because like I told you, I think black and white unbiased. Like, if I take myself out of it, I'm like, I won Tampa. Like it's like that's not a lie. Like it's a fact. Like my name's on the Olympia list. I just was in Pittsburgh. I filled out my contract, which is right there, sitting right there. I'm going to Olympia. Like that's a fact. I can have a little bit of self belief now. You know what I mean? Like I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to, and it was Tampa. Like we talked about the show qualities. Like it was Tampa. It was Tampa, and then being Gabriel, who's 13th at the O last year. It's like, can I get 13th? Could I get 12th? Could I get 10th? Could I be compared with the first call up? If I really nail my condition and my shape looks great and I just fill out hard as hell, and get nice and bubbly and full, like could I sneak into that? When I was talking to Tyler again in Pittsburgh, he was like, just replicate your condition. He's like, your condition's dark. It's top tier. And it's like that's really cool here, as well as the structure. And if I can just me and my coach can fill that out very well, I feel like I'll look even bigger and more bubbly. You know what I mean? With a tighter look and still keeping the waist super small with my shape and stuff like that. So we have a good game plan. Like, I said a little bit earlier, like we're a bit ahead. So I think we kind of play with things a little bit. Nothing crazy, because I feel like the Olympia is a show where a lot of people miss the mark too, because they try a bunch of voodoo shit. And we're not doing that. You know what I mean? It's just more so if I was able to push carbs, let's say on a refeed to like 600, what like let's pull you to 650, 700 right now, just because you're ahead and we have that time. Like, let's see if you can handle that right now, being distant. Right, little things, nothing that's too crazy or throwing in new foods or anything like that. So that's another thing too, to make note, because you asked what we did differently. I hadn't had a cheat meal this whole prep. Uh, my last cheat meal was like 16 weeks out. I started at 20 weeks out, so like I had a cheat meal, but it was like 4 months out from the show. And usually the night before I have my burger and fry, but not after Fit World. We don't really mess with that anymore. So we do just a bunch of clean food because we know what it is. Like it worked, and like I came in Tampa ready to rock.
Yeah, and that's the thing about clean food too, is like trackable.
Yep.
That's one thing that is super, super important too when you're peaking. It's such a fine art.
Well,
And
I was gonna say for Charlotte, Dan homemade me a burger and a fry. He went and got a super lean burger. He got the bun. He had fries that he weighed out, so he knew exactly the calories, carbs, fats, proteins, and it was homemade, so we knew it wasn't food poisoning with bad food. So that was good. So he did incorporate it for Charlotte. That's something to kind of make note on. But no, we did not do that at all for Tampa.
that's a hell of a coach though, man. He'll make you your burger for the peak.
Crystal didn't get to Charlotte yet, and the thing was, I stayed at his home for that peak week because he lives like 35 minutes from where the venue was. So it was he's in a small town outside of Charlotte. So like it was at his home. It was easier peak week, like no issues, for California. And yeah, I'll give him a big shout out now. Dan is I'm very grateful for that man. Like, we're a lot closer than coach and client, but he definitely goes above and beyond for me as well as his other athletes. And I know, like a lot of people think the coaches kind of have favorites, and truthfully, with him, like he does not. Like he treats everyone the same. Like when I'm there, chilling there, like during peak week or like when I'm there, he's putting so much effort into his clients, and he's one of these coaches that like will spend quite a bit of time on your program and like on your changes and like evaluating things versus quickly making an edit and moving on. Like he's very very on top of things.
Yeah, man. I'm curious about that because we live in an era in bodybuilding where everyone's a
Yeah,
coach. You know, people do one show and they're a coach now. People automatically gravitate toward the big names. You know, it seems like the vast majority of people have the exact same coach. And granted, I understand that's for a reason because there are really good coaches out there and naturally, good athletes gravitate towards them. But I want to know from your perspective, man, you've been with Dan for 7.5 years, which is remarkable, man. Just speak to like how valuable it is to work with somebody for that long as opposed to like coach hopping. And also just I'm really curious, man. What are your thoughts on like what makes Dan so valuable? Because Dan's not like a household name. Like what makes him such a good coach?
he's in it for all the right reasons. I think that's what makes him a great coach. I think there's other coaches out there that aren't. I've seen really tremendous coaches who have fallen off or have missed the mark more and more, and you see kind of what they're doing with what coaching was provided them and given them, and that's not all, the whole case. But I think people view coaching as a way to, make a lot of money, which you can, um, but you can also get into it for the wrong reason and look for the wrong thing from it, if that makes sense. And that's not Dan. Dan truly and genuinely loves this. Dan worked corporate up until last year, full time corporate worker, part slash full time coach. He just loved coaching, and that's what makes him a great coach. On top of a fun fact is like he competed in the early 2000s into the 2010s and whatnot. He grew up watching the old square, competing in the that middle era, and like now gets to coach the newer era. And he's had experience like in all these different eras and has seen the game progress. Like there's some things he's super old school about. It's funny because like I think about it compared to other coaches and athletes, and it's worn off on me. And then there's certain things that are newer and whatnot. So like he's a he's a man of many just many years and um, wisdom and knowledge and just yeah, he's just a different breed and such a good person. That's important too. He's such a fucking good person. Puts everyone first. And he's had a tough life and upbringing himself. And he's made mistakes in the past that, with himself, you know what I mean? That I won't dive into. He's talked about it openly, but he's just a beautiful human being. That's a great way to describe him. You know what I'm saying? So he's just, and working with him that long, he's got to understand my body, me as a person. We've been there for each other through a lot of personal things too. So, not like it took 7.5 years. So if anyone right now is going to listening to this and be like, well, I want to find my next coach, that's my coach. Okay, look at where you are now. 7.5 fucking years. So much has changed in my life in 7.5 years. Like my father passed away 5.5 years ago, pretty much. So Dan's been in my life even when my dad was still alive. And my dad's been gone for what seems like forever, right? Like such a Dan was me and Dan were working together before I turned 21. I'm 28 now. It's a long time. You know what I mean? So I knew Dan when he was I met him when he was still living in Jersey. Then he moved to. So much has changed, and it's been cool to be able to like say that, like, I truly am confident he's the ride or die for me. I'm his, so we have a really good relationship, and we look forward to just continue to improve and showing the world like what we're capable of, because like we do keep getting better, and like I confidently say that, like the placings and what we've done kind of speak for itself, and I really am looking forward to what this year brings and next year and the following and the rest of my career, because I think that we're going to be able to look back at this and be super proud and grateful, and then share our journey to like building our legacy to the world, and I'm really looking forward to that.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of bodybuilders and coaches kind of miss out on. It's like they don't get enough time to work together,
Yeah,
bro. It's like everybody's like, "Oh shit, we missed the peak like on the first try. Gonna try another coach, you know?" Like it takes
and my opinion on that is, like, unless that coach, like, you had some serious issues, like one show is not enough. If I left Dan after one, two, three shows, like, especially because if these coaches aren't there in person, like, give them more of a chance to understand what that is like, right? Especially if you have a good relationship with them.
Mhm.
Again, if they do something completely wrong, then okay, you know, you can kind of validate that. But if not, like, ride it out for another show or two, unless you're really, really not happy.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Because I mean, the thing is, if you get it right on like the first try or two, like either that coach is just insanely good, they've worked with somebody just like you, or it's pure luck. It's it's like you cannot. There are great coaches who, they may not like have you 100% on the first couple of times, but you're still gonna look good, you know?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And the ones who do nail it, they're probably like the top level coaches and like a top level athlete already. And the coach has had eyes on the athlete from a competitive standpoint for some time, where they understand them even if they haven't coached them, right? Like they've seen their
Yeah.
progression, maybe heard a thing or two that worked for them, and them being a smart coach, and this person, this athlete being a top notch athlete, it's easy to kind of understand what they might need and make that relationship. Like a good example is like Hani coaching Chris. Like best coach for the best athlete. Like, if they understand each other, like to some degree, like it's gonna be a recipe for success. And it's like, they're gonna have luck the first try, right? They could.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you could give a random person Chris Bumstead, and it's probably not going to turn out
Yeah,
bad.
exactly, exactly.
So it's like it's one of those things where it's just like the caliber of the athlete matters for one, and then two, it's also just like you know I think people also forget that coaching knowledge doesn't always equate to coaching fame. You got all these people who are like, oh, I want like Matt Jansen to coach me, or I want Hani Rambod to coach me. It's like, I mean, bro, like there are so many good coaches out there who are
Yeah,
not top, like 5 million followers on Instagram. It's like, bro, there are so many knowledgeable guys who are
with
not
my coach.
like, yeah,
Like giving my coach a shout out again. Like my coach, like he's not the most known coach, but he's been in the industry and in the game for so long and has so much knowledge. And just around that time where he was gaining this knowledge and kind of pursuing life and having a family, it wasn't like a thought to make it a full time thing and kind of push the social media and stuff. And that wasn't him, right? So like he just never did it like these other guys who got really well known for it. And obviously did the coaching full time where they could build up a resume of athletes that they could share a lot of. Dan, while he had great athletes, he never really did that, right? So it just
yeah,
wasn't his focus at the time, I should say.
yeah. Because I mean, there's other things going on in life, so it's like sometimes bodybuilding doesn't always
Yeah.
take the front seat
Yeah,
necessarily.
sometimes people start a family first and they have to then like figure out ways to provide for them immediately so they don't have time to put into a business versus someone who maybe started coaching first and then, then was able to, like start a family once they kind of made a lot of money, right? Like, so, like, my goal is to do well enough where when my fiance and I have a child, like, things are taken care of, where I'm able to still bodybuild and like what we talked about earlier, like get a fucking breather. Maybe not have to work a corporate job and just do coaching and posing and having I'm very grateful for my sponsorships I do have. Be able to get more through sponsorships through my own brand and business, right? Like through like YouTube, if I went down that route, like some of these like athletes are doing, right? Like so, that'd be the goal to be able to take care of, to still be able to do what I do at a very high level and get done what I need to get done to be the best while taking care of my future wife, my child, my home situation, personal life stuff that does not stop. And like that stuff at the end of the day, people need to hear this because there's a lot of people who there's a lot of people out there who probably have way more boundaries and are a lot tougher than I am in terms of like I'm very strict when it comes to what I need to do as a bodybuilder, but I always make time for the people I love as much as I can, and I kind of like balance things. There's amateurs who like literally ruin their lives, and it's like, and they just don't have the potential, and they're never going to get there. And you need to understand that and stop ruining these other things. You can make both work. Not until you stop bodybuilding. Okay, you might not be able to get there ever to the top level, what's really provided for you, but don't stop doing something you love. Just understand you can make that kind of balance and put focus elsewhere too. You kind of have to. And if not, you're going to really ruin your life. You're going to look back and be disappointed when you realize, like, man, I just, well, the years going on and you never got to where you want to be. And you did give it your all, just like I'm giving it my all. But I'm making sure that, see, the thing is, these people that are in my life, they're enabling me to do this too. My fiance, my family, my friends, my understanding why I can't go out all the time, coach. Like, they deserve the time and that balance, not to be cut off. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. None of us are, especially when we get this close to each other. When there's all these different factors that are impacting us physically, mentally, emotionally. We're not perfect people, but I think I do a really good job of letting my team know how important they are to me and that I'm going to do everything I can for them in this time within reason without like really dropping down. Right? So, out of exhaustion and discomfort and whatnot. Like my girlfriend, a great example, my girlfriend, I just my fiance, uh, there's a concert in a week. There's a concert a week from tomorrow, actually. Teddy Swims. Teddy Swims is going to be here in Jersey. And she asked me if I wanted to go. And at first, I was like, yeah, not really. But I was like, I could make it work. And it's stadium seats where, like, I'm sitting down for the concert. So I just have to drive there, walk in, sit down, and listen to artists, drive back. And I'm like, that might be really good for me and really good for us. I think it's something she wants to do. And it's something I kind of want to do, too. And it's not going to really, be like me sitting home watching TV, right? Like, just I'm going somewhere to enjoy good music. Teddy, it's not, and Teddy Swims. Like, he's not like a rap. It's not gonna be a fucking rave or anything like that. Like, I'm gonna be exhausted. Like, it's literally gonna be peaceful, cool music and kind of chill. It's like, okay, why not? It's a little bit of drive. Might take a couple hours. I'll work my meals around it. That's all that I need to do. Everything else is easy. So just stuff like that.
Yeah, man, you make some insanely good points. Like the majoring and the minors thing is all too
Yeah,
prevalent, I think. Like so many guys just like get caught up in shit that does
yeah,
not matter. And it's like you notice I saw somebody post about this the other day. It's like, why are people so caught up in like looking at things that influencers say is the right thing to do, but look at the top guys and they don't follow what they do. So like guys like Chris, like Ramon, like yourself, they're like taking time to like live life and balance things too. They have things outside of bodybuilding. Like these are guys who take 2 months off after the Olympia every single year
and
consistently.
you might be seeing things from them they have like, and listen, I'm not this level, so I don't really understand how it would work, but I believe like they probably have a YouTube crew. Like Chris has Calvin, I believe, like he does his video editing
Yeah,
posting. He's got someone who's doing all his content for him. Chris is not sitting there on his phone like half these fools are. You know what I'm saying? Like all the time. He does not have the time for that. He's a business owner. He's Mr. Olympia. He's a husband, a father, a homeowner. He got real life shit, like you know what I mean, like real life stuff. So he's worked his way up to that point, and I think that's kind of where, like going back, like I'm kind of that now, where like I try to keep up with socials. I do my posts. If you see, like, I don't answer a lot of comments or likes or anything like that. I don't have the time to, and I mean that respectfully. And I love seeing positive stuff come in here and there. So please, if anyone's listening, like please keep it coming. It's just like and it helps me grow even more so that one day, maybe this can be my way out and be able to kind of breathe and give back to those even more people too. But right now, I'm just in this grind time where I don't have the time. Where these people, like you said, Ramon, Chris, they don't have the time either. But they finally have the resources where someone is doing that stuff for them. So you're seeing all of that, but that's not where their focus is, and that's why they're the best. That's why they're the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a right and a
yeah,
wrong. A right and a wrong. There always is. We talk about the coaching, we talk about athletes. There's a right and a wrong when it comes to where your mind's at and why you're doing something. And a lot of the influencers or other people, maybe someone who doesn't compete but they're an influencer, they look like their life is a certain way. You have no idea the hell what's going on outside of that for that individual. No, and you don't know what they're lying about too. So just a news flash, guys. Social media is social media. If the owners of Instagram and YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and all that shit shut down those applications tomorrow, what would life be like for you? Ask yourself that question truthfully. Because for me, I know I'd still have my corporate job. I'd still be working. I'd still be bodybuilding because I love it. I'd still have my fiance, my two dogs, my family. What would you have? And ask yourself that truthfully, and like see if you need a true reevaluation of where certain parts of your life are. Again, doesn't mean you have to stop putting everything you have into bodybuilding. You just have to learn how to give other things more as well. So I hope that's a really good lesson for someone listening because, and it's not easy, guys. Like I am. Are we allowed to curse on here? I know I have a couple times. Sorry, but like I'm fucking tired.
it doesn't.
Fucking tired. Like a lot of the time, guys. But my sleep is not the best. Even though I try, like there's so much going on. Like I could be doing so much better. I still am a little bit sick and under the weather. And I'm 3 weeks out from Olympia, which sucks. There's so much more I could be doing better for myself, but right now I have these other things that need me in priority. You know what I mean? And other things to attend to, and I try to do my best to balance it the best I can without ruining, my relationships, my friendships, my work. To the best of my ability.
You just hit on like plenty of great points, man. It's like bodybuilding is super fulfilling in itself, and it's something that we love. But it's also like there's so much more to life, man. It's like, what's the point of doing all this if you don't have anybody to share it with,
Exactly.
bro?
I joke around my fiance and like I even made a joke to Dan yesterday, and I was like, when we have all the success from the sport, I want to retire all of us and our families and move somewhere like Aruba or Italy, where like I would just move and get the fuck out of here and like, live life with my people, like the people, like my ride or dies, my OGs, like the day ones, like that's what I want, like them to like us all to be together when this is done, knowing that this legacy and what we're doing together gave us that. Because it's not the Justin Badurina show. Like I talk about, like it takes a village, and I got a fucking army. It takes a village, and I have an army. I said that in Tampa. I've said that on some podcasts now, some interviews. That's my quote, my coin, quote unquote. That like that's me. It takes a village. I have an army that I'm grateful for. My army will do anything for me, and I'll do anything for them. So that's what it's about. This is, the army won Tampa. Some of the comments from Tampa were like, "Yo, his friends and family were the loudest ones there." Yeah, they were, and I would be if I was in the stands for them too. It takes an army. It takes a village to have an army.
Man, that's
Yeah,
beautiful, dude. And I think, that's what this is all about, bro. It's about the moments. It's about being present in those moments with the people that you love. And this shit's hard.
hard.
It gets really hard. It gets really hard at this. I mean, you've done countless contest preps, been crazy lean, and people aren't gonna understand it unless if they've been there. Because it's like it
Well,
just your body's in survival
oh,
mode.
yeah, yes, for sure. But also, like, let's give you a shout out too. You compete, and you run this channel, and you have a full time job, and you have a missus, and you might be looking to buy a home in the future and a child, and like, how do I manage all this? How do I do this? How do I juggle all this? Like, just it's another thing too. Like, people might be watching this that like don't compete and don't ever want to compete, but they love it, and they might be focused on other parts of their life that they're juggling too. Like child and work and like other endeavors and ventures and whatnot. And like we all work hard to make it work. And like to say someone works harder or less hard, has more on their plate, less on their plate, it's all subjective and relative. Sure, there's people that are in
Right.
some awful situations. There's people that have been dealt an awful hand. And I pray for those people daily. I pray for everyone. I hope that everyone's okay, right? So everyone's working hard and is going through the ringer. Everyone is.
Yeah, man, for sure. Yeah, it's one of those things like everybody talks about. You want to be in a stable position to really start bodybuilding and like step on stage, but there's also a point in which if you wait till you're ready, are you really ever ready? You know what I'm saying? Like you got to just jump in, baby.
That's right. That's right, and that's a really good point too. Like and I think I think what I talked about with managing, like family and friends and other things, like it's about figuring that balance out for yourself, right? Like you have to be doing well enough to. You can't be piss poor living out your car to bodybuild. I mean, people probably have done that before, and if you have, hopefully you don't find it disrespectful. It's not something I would do. I would not do that. I would not do that. Um, you know what I mean? But like, you're right. Like, you might not mentally think like I can make this work. And sometimes I learned this from a colleague. Sometimes you have to overdo it a bit because it'll make you work a little bit harder. But you can't overdo it to the point of you're going to dig yourself that hole. It's kind of like you're here on the end of this mountain. There's a big canal, and this is what you have to jump. And it seems tough, but you think you can get it, and you're going to go for it. It's realistic, and let's say you can get it. You made that jump. You put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. That's impossible. You're gonna die. Like if you go trying to make that jump that's a little bit more realistic, and then you dig yourself that hole, right? Like where you're not getting out. It's not worth it to then go for that at the time. Like so, what you said, like you have to just jump, but you also have to. You really gotta. You know what I mean? There's that fine line. There's a fine line, right? That balance that we kind of talk about, right? That balance.
It's really good, especially. I mean, I think this is regardless of who is listening, but for young men especially, man, it's so important to take on responsibility and to find things to really occupy your time. It's very important to have things to work on and to have like a purpose to wake up for, even if it's just, something
Challenge you.
small.
Challenge
Yeah, you
you.
need something to,
Um,
man.
to challenge you, to make you uncomfortable. Again, within reason, like all this stuff within reason.
Yeah.
There's the trophy. How to give one little show up with that. I have it on the top shelf of this bookshelf. If I accidentally hit this bookshelf, this thing is going to crack my head open. It's heavy. This thing is gonna fall and go right through my head.
Big ass trophies too,
This
man.
was, yeah, it's the biggest one I've ever gotten. You know, makes sense. Well, actually, I got a sword from fun fact actually for people. Tampa was the second show I've ever won. I've done 12 shows, 6 amateur shows, 6 pro shows. I turned pro at my 6 amateur show, got my Olympia qualification at my 6 pro show. Um, I've only won one show as an amateur to turn pro. I placed second behind Tony Tavares, and so I didn't win that technically, even though it was a win. So I won Excalibur back in 2018 overall there, which is local like amateur show, and then I won Tampa. So fun fact, and for the Excalibur, I got a sword.
Dude, that's insane, man. I don't think a lot of people really realize, just the path to get where you are is long and winding,
And,
man.
and like people be like, "Oh, the Tampa Pro winner, he's had to have like won a lot before." Like, no, I have not. I've had really good placings in the IFBB. Like, no one can deny that. Like before Tampa, like unbiased, you looking at it like the place. I got like second place 2 times. I got a third. I got a fifth with food poisoning. I got eighth in my pro debut. Like those are my placings. It's not bad in this division. It's a very stacked division. The shows I did were good shows. They were good shows. But Tampa was like kind of like the icing, right? They kind of like really catapulted me into that kind of next tier of athletes, in my opinion. You know, that's what talking to JM. They're like, when they're thinking about like the top, 5, 6 shows for Classic, they think of like the Olympia, the Arnold, New York, Pittsburgh, Tampa. I think they said Toronto too. Those those shows they really do highly. Those winners are viewed like as really good competitors who can make a big splash.
Yeah, rightfully so, man. Deepest shows
Yeah,
out there. Maybe with the exception of Toronto recently, but Texas though.
yeah, Texas. I think
What's the next 3 weeks looking like for you in the lead up to the show?
it's it's busy. It's busy. Like I this weekend's actually the last weekend as a breather, where I don't have a tremendous amount going on. Just have well, I do. I mean, I work tomorrow. I have all my client programs, and I have supposed clients. Sunday, I finally have a day off, and it's leg day, so it's a torturous day off. I have my work week. I have my full time. Next weekend, I got to take the dogs to get groomed. I got to train. We're potentially going to see this concert. We finalize the tickets. Then the next day, I'm actually going to be. This is really cool. I'm going to be with Terrence Sunday, the 29th, at a gym's grand opening called Animal Paradise Gym here in New Jersey. Brand new gym that it's a grand opening. I'll be there with Terrence Ruffin, Brandon Hendrickson, men's physique champ, Drew Cullen. I think he goes by Most Shredded on IG. And then Ann Gruber, who's another New Jersey local pro. I think she's a master's physique pro. She got really good physique. Five of us are going to be kind of like the IFBB pros representing this grand opening. Like it's a 5-hour party at the gym on Sundays. That's what I have. And then I have another work week. And then that next weekend is kind of like packing for us to leave Monday. So it's nonstop, man. I got off work the whole week, obviously, for the Olympia, but it's nonstop. And when I get to Vegas, that's when I'm finally gonna be able to kick my feet up. So like it's gonna be chill. It's gonna be really, really chill. And I was just in Vegas back in April in prep for work for my corporate job. I had to go through a huge company event. So, and the World Resorts where we're staying, I think it's right across the street from where I stayed. So I know the environment somewhat, right? Like I've been to Vegas before. It's not like my first time to Vegas. I know kind of just yeah, like I feel comfortable going if that makes sense.
Yeah, man. It's always great having you on,
Of
talking
course,
to you,
man.
man. And glad we got to do this, bro.
Yes, yeah, me too, man. It's an honor, privilege. It's always great speaking with you. You know how I feel about you and what you're doing, and just you as a person. Whole bodybuilding aside, you're good. You're a good person. You know, you really,
Hey,
I enjoy
likewise,
that.
brother, man. it's always good to see, good people winning too. So, that's what this is all about, man. Just trying to put the right people in the spotlight and highlight good people like yourself, and just provide like positivity, man. Because in a world full of negativity, it's good to be a little
That's right.
different. So,
Definitely not wrong there, man.
but thanks again, brother. Always good seeing you, man. And I mean, I'm sure we'll text and
Yeah,
whatnot.
we can text a little bit, then we're gonna hop off here and be good to go after. So
Yeah,
yeah, shoot me a text. We'll chop it up a little bit.
sounds good, brother.
Yeah,
Take care, man. Have a good
thanks,
rest of
boss.
the day.
See ya.